The alien scholar laughed at our stone tools, until he saw they were nuclear glass, Doctor. Kethavar adjusted his iridescent feathers and let out what could only be described as a condescending trill. The Valaxian scholar stood before the assembled Galactic Archaeological Council, his forearms gesturing dramatically at the holographic display of artifacts recovered from the third planet of Sol system. "Esteemed colleagues," he began, his translator rendering his melodic speech into standard galactic, "what we have here is perhaps the most primitive collection of tools ever discovered from a species that somehow achieved faster than light travel." A ripple of amused chirps and clicks echoed through the chamber. The human representative, Dr. Sarah Chen, sat quietly in the observers section, her expression carefully neutral. She had been invited as a courtesy. After all, these were artifacts from her homeworld. But according to galactic protocols, only species with advanced archaeological credentials could lead such studies. Humans, being the newest members of the galactic community, were considered too inexperienced. Kethavar continued his presentation with obvious relish. "Observe these crude implements." The hologram zoomed in on what appeared to be roughly knapped stone tools, arrowheads, knife blades, and scrapers. The craftsmanship is abysmal. The edges are irregular. The material is some form of volcanic glass, and the knapping technique suggests a species barely above animal intelligence. Dr. Vorthak, a crystalline being from the Andromeda spiral, resonated with curiosity. But Kethavar, these tools were found in the ruins of their capital cities, not in ancient archaeological sites. The dating suggests they're from their atomic age, not their stone age. Kethavar's feathers ruffled with what his species considered amusement. "Precisely my point. Even during their supposed technological peak, humans were still making stone tools. It demonstrates their fundamental inability to progress beyond their primitive origins." He gestured dismissively. "No wonder they nearly destroyed themselves before achieving space travel. Such a backward species." The Valaxian zoomed in further on one of the arrowheads. "The material composition confirms it. Silicon dioxide with various impurities. Common volcanic glass, or what humans primitively call obsidian. They were literally living in the atomic age while still chipping rocks together like cavemen." Dr. Chen finally cleared her throat. The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to her. According to protocol, she wasn't supposed to speak unless directly addressed, but something in her posture suggested she had important information. "Dr. Kethavar," she said politely, "might I suggest running a more detailed spectrographic analysis on those artifacts?" Kethavar's translator barely concealed his irritation. "Dr. Chen, I assure you our equipment is far more advanced than anything. Your species—" "I'm not questioning your equipment," Chen interrupted gently. "I'm questioning your conclusions. Please run the analysis. Check for trace isotopes." The Valaxian scholar's feathers bristled, but professional curiosity won over wounded pride. He activated the deep scan protocols, his confidence absolute. The holographic display began showing detailed molecular structures, isotope ratios, and elemental compositions. For a moment, the chamber was silent except for the humming of the analysis equipment. Then gradually Kethavar's feathers began to lose their lustrous sheen, a sign of distress in his species. This cannot be correct," he whispered. Dr. Vorthak's crystalline form pulsed with interest. "What does it show?" Kethavar's voice became smaller. "The glass, it contains isotopes of cesium-137, strontium-90, and traces of plutonium-239. He paused, his forearms trembling slightly. "The molecular structure shows formation at temperatures exceeding 1700 degrees Celsius. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Dr. Chen stood slowly, her voice carrying clearly across the space. "Ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed beings of various classifications," she began. "What you're looking at aren't primitive stone tools. They're trinitite, nuclear glass formed at ground zero of atomic detonations. Humans didn't nap those tools during the atomic age. They napped them after the atomic age." The silence was deafening. Chen continued, her voice steady. "Those artifacts, were crafted by survivors in the ruins of our cities. After we nearly destroyed our civilization with nuclear war, after our great cities became radioactive wastelands, humans emerged from the ashes and began again. They took the very glass created by our most destructive weapons and shaped it into tools to rebuild. Kethvar's proud posture crumbled. But the craftsmanship is so crude. They were made by people with radiation sickness, Chen explained quietly. By people with shaking hands and failing eyesight, working with materials that were slowly killing them. They made these tools not because they had forgotten how to make better ones, but because they had to make do with what remained. She gestured to the hologram. Every one of those primitive tools represents an act of defiance against extinction. Every rough edge is a testament to human stubbornness. Our ancestors took the glass born from the fire that nearly ended our species and said, "This will not be our ending. This will be our beginning." Dr. Vorthak's crystalline form pulsed with what humans had learned to recognize as deep respect. They turned their weapons into tools. More than that, Chen said. They turned their apocalypse into a foundation. Those aren't primitive tools, Dr. Kethvar. They're proof that humans don't stay down when we fall. We get up, we adapt, and we rebuild, even if we have to use radioactive glass to do it. Kethvar stared at the hologram for a long moment, his forearms hanging limp. When he finally spoke, his voice carried none of its earlier condescension. I believe I may have underestimated your species, Dr. Chen. Chen smiled grimly. Most people do. The galaxy sees our scars and assumes we're weak. They don't realize that every scar is proof we survived something that should have killed us. She looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of a dozen species. We didn't join your galactic community because we're the most advanced species, or the most peaceful, or the most enlightened. We joined because we're the species that took nuclear fire and forged it into arrowheads. We're the species that looked at the end of the world and decided it was just another Tuesday. The chamber remained silent as the implications sank in. Finally, Dr. Vorthak resonated softly. Perhaps we should reconsider who leads the archaeological studies of human artifacts. Chen nodded. I think that would be wise. After all, you need to understand the context to understand the tools. And the context of human tools is this. We make them from whatever tries to kill us. As the council session ended, Kethvar approached Chen privately. Doctor, I owe you an apology. I have studied archaeology for over 2 centuries, but I have never encountered artifacts with such weight. Chen looked at the hologram one more time, at those rough radioactive arrowheads that her ancestors had chipped from glass born in atomic fire. That's the thing about human artifacts, Dr. Kethvar. They don't just tell you what we made, they tell you what we survived.